The Scream Kings are in no way responsible for any encounters with the paranormal, extraterrestrial abductions, eldritch insanity, hauntings, hexes, curses, demonic possessions, cryptozoological sightings, or any loss of sleep from listening to this podcast.
This is the Scream Kings podcast. I'm NJ Gallegos.
And this is Max George.
I'm Nathaniel Darkish.
And I'm Rae Knowles.
Revenge never looks so promising on a podcast.
All
So
right,
to-
so we
Oh my gosh, we all talked at the same time.
sometimes this is let's just say it's a good thing editing exists. Sorry that we're so chaotic, Ray.
We're all very excited.
Hi, everybody.
Hola. So Ray, thanks for coming on the show. I will say that I have had fond memories of you ever since we met at StokerCon, outside of the hotel whenever the vape, smoke cleared and I saw this ethereal angel. So thank you for coming.
That's me, the one under the vape cloud.
I have this beautiful image right now of just like this ethereal mist dissipating, and Ray is just there with some 90s music going on in the background. It's magical.
That's exactly how it happened.
It was like that. It was.
I knew it. I was there. I wasn't there, but I was there in spirit.
I just want to know what 90s music.
It's the soundtrack from 10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh, absolutely. Ray, we're going to be best friends now.
That is the correct choice, and I applaud you.
Well, I would have said Space Jam, but that's fine.
Ooh, also, close second.
Huzzah. All right. Well, Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself. Yourself as a writer, and also, we just want to hear about your hopes and dreams and all of the fun things about what makes you you. You don't have to get into your hopes and dreams if you don't want to.
So I am a queer woman. I live, unfortunately, in South Florida.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's not ideal. However, I do live with my tremendous wife and our son, and that's great. And I'm a horror author. I write some steamy horror sometimes. And it's almost always queer just because that's what I like. And that's what I want to write about. And I'm also obsessed with revenge, as you can probably tell if you read Merciless Waters and you're listening to this, so you know that I've selected Promising Young Woman as the movie to talk about.
Excellent. Well, before we talk about the movie, want to know a little bit about kind of you as a horror fan. Kind of how did you get into horror? And what's your favorite piece of horror?
Oh, how did I get into horror? I remember I was like 13 and I saw the first Resident Evil movie in theaters, and it scared the crap out of me, and I had like nightmares and panic attacks over it. And I think a lot of horror fans are born out of an experience like that. So I don't really know why that translated into an obsession with horror. But for me, it sure did. So that's kind of where it started. And then I got really into like film fest horror movies. So they're like unrated because they're so gory. And it was called like After Dark Horror Fest or something. And got super into that. And I started writing like horror short stories back in high school. So that's sort of my villain origin story. And what was the other part of the question?
What is your favorite piece of horror, whether that's film or books or whatever?
I would never be able to choose one favorite. As far as like scariest horror movies that I've seen, I find the possession horror to be really scary. I don't know what it is about it, but I find it like deeply scary. So, like, when I think of movies, I think of, like, The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yes.
wild. And The Taking of Deborah Logan, the
such a
original
good film.
Exorcist.
So good.
They're just like, there's something about it that's just really like chef's kiss to me. And so I also like horror books, and I'm reading The Exorcist right now, and
Brilliant.
I have a lot of thoughts that I think I'll save for later, because I think we're going to get into that later. But yeah, and as far as like recent favorite books that I've read, along the lines of possession horror, actually, I've read the first 3 books actually in the Blackwell series by C.S. Umble, that follow a they call him an intercessor, but essentially like in Exorcist, and only 2 of them are published. One is not yet published, so I'm humble bragging there. But yeah, all that to say, I guess like I'm super into possession horror now that I'm saying it all out loud.
Rae, I have like 8 books within arm reach of summoning any sort of demon you would like. Demonology is my Jimmy Jams.
Gosh, that's terrifying, and let's just spend the rest of this hour talking about that.
Come on over. We'll summon some sort of demon and enslave it to do our bidding.
Oh my god, I'm actually like legit scared of it. I think that's why it scares me, because it really does scare me. And I'm not like Catholic or anything. I think I'm like agnostic or something, or I don't know what I am. But yeah, that was a really long answer to your question.
I love demons and everything to do about them. So if you ever have any questions, if you're watching a film and you're like, this seems weird, shoot me a message and I will fact check the movie for you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And then tell you how to summon that specific demon.
Yeah, I will follow up with that. Be ready.
Oh my god, I don't even want to know. What if I do it by accident?
Then it's like a Wonder Ball. You'll just get a surprise inside, and we'll deal with it as it comes.
Okay.
StokerCon's going to be lit this year, guys.
I'm going to hold a demon, like, summoning in one of the rooms, and it will be great.
Oh my god, suggested as a panel.
Yeah. Oh my god.
You should.
Ugh. Don't tempt me, temptresses.
Yeah, no, that sounds like something they would 100% do.
So, Rae, why did you pick Promising Young Woman?
So, when I was trying to think of films that would pair well with Merciless Waters, I like really struggled, because it gets described as pirate horror a lot, which I don't really object to, but I will say there are no pirates in it. They are on a pirate ship. So I did not want to go with like a pirate movie. And it's like a little different. It's based on Slavic mythology, and I personally don't know of any films based on that. So I kind of went theme, and there is a theme of women exacting revenge over, the men that they perceive to have wronged them. And so I think from that perspective, Promising Young Woman is a comp.
It's a good tie-in. I highly, yes. So.
Yeah, I think we should get into the film, because I knew very little, hardly anything about this movie. And I was blown away. Rae, way to like come in and show a movie that is just brilliant.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I'm just picturing you wearing like a black beret and being like, yes.
It's a beast of a movie. I'm excited to talk about it.
Please lay down. What are you doing?
It's okay, hey, you're safe.
What are you doing? Hey, I said, what are you doing? Every week, I go to a club. I act like I'm too drunk to stand. And every week, a nice guy comes over to see if I'm okay.
You okay? You are so pretty. I am a nice guy.
Are you?
I thought we had a connection.
Okay. How old am I? What are my hobbies? What's my name? Sorry, maybe that one's too hard.
All right, well, let's dive in. So, Promising Young Woman came out in 2020, the year that everything went to shit, and was directed and written by Emerald Fennell, whatever. And then starring Carey Mulligan.
Weird tangent. Carey Mulligan looks really like my therapist. And there were a few parts in the movie I was like, oh no, this is going to get brought up in therapy.
I think we should do an episode on that.
Plays your therapist?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah, darkness.
Yeah. Well, this movie won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay and also got noms for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actress. Obviously, Carey Mulligan, aka Max's therapist, and Best Film Editing.
Jesus Christ.
This is going to be great. I can't wait for your next therapy session.
Oh, great. Sorry,
Please
Shannon.
save it.
Rae, not to put you on the spot, but do you want to give us like a Spark Notes version of the plot of this film? And just to be clear for everybody, this is a spoiler podcast. If you want to watch this film, spoilers free, go do it now before you listen any further.
And you should, because it's awesome.
It's incredible.
So, Promising Young Woman follows Carey Mulligan's character, Cassie, as she seeks to sort of hold men accountable for their, what I would say is their participation in rape culture, often by pretending to be extremely drunk at a bar and allowing a supposed nice guy to take her home and then try to take advantage of her until she stops pretending to be drunk and really scares them into kind of realizing what they were doing and gets out of there. So, and she's motivated to do this because it's implied that in college her friend Nina was sexually assaulted and then took her life. So Cassie is sort of on a mission to kind of avenge Nina via these other men. Not my best summation ever, but that's the gist of it.
No, I think you did a great job. I think what is important to mention is she does fall in love, and it kind of has this, maybe not an existential crisis, but kind of a self-discovery that maybe there's a little bit more to life than revenge. She falls in love with the great Bo Burnham.
And then realizes that he actually was there when Nina got raped, and then decides to complete her revenge on all of the terrible people. And then is murdered. Spoiler!
Yeah.
We warned you, bitches! Like we've said, Rae, this film is spectacular. Spectacular.
Yeah, like I agree with you, and I think it's really painful to watch.
Yep.
Because it's so honest, I think, in its portrayal of how this plays out in real life, in how women uphold this culture in their own ways. You'll notice that all of these instances in the movie have been played for comedy in comedies, like all the time. You know, like it's joked about between men in multiple movies to like, oh, take your shot with that really drunk girl. And it's been like hugely accepted, all of these things that are happening in the movie. But because, this is not a comedy, it allows you to see it in a really different light. And it's really scary and it's really gut-wrenching. And I think Cassie's journey is pretty honest in ways that other rape revenge films are not. So I don't know like where you want to start with the movie, but I don't want to jump ahead.
No, I think that is a great place to start in talking about what the message of this film is. Well, I really resonated and appreciated about kind of how it was created was sure, we all know that toxic masculinity is a thing, and I think a lot of us in 2023 want to believe that it doesn't really exist anymore. But there's this weird subversion and this subculture about how straight men and, let's throw in queer men as well, talk about other people as if they're gaining an award or they're on a conquest, some sort of um, they're winning something, but
Hmm.
it's all behind kind of this veil of comedy and the ha ha and the oh I bet you can't. And this
Hmm.
film puts that right at the beginning and makes you very uncomfortable because that's real life. It's really terrifying.
Yeah, and I think they intentionally cast men who traditionally have been in roles where they're very likable because I think one of the questions this film wants us to ask ourselves is how do you respond when the person doing these things is someone you want to like? Like it's
Yeah.
very easy to root against a villainous man who's very clearly portrayed as a villain in a film, but it feels different when it's McLovin, right? Like who's on screen.
Well, and everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be flirted with. That's a good feeling. So when does that line get drawn of is this appropriate or is it not appropriate? Um just the directors and the producers and the actors even in this film are just so spectacular in this regard.
Mm.
Yeah, and another thing I love is that it does a really good job of kind of showing how people who think of themselves as good people talk themselves into these bad kind of situations, right? Like,
Yeah.
particularly, towards the end, we see Al, who ultimately murders Cassie, talking himself into being led up there by, led upstairs by a stripper, and oh well, I'm a good guy, and
I'm a gentleman is what he
yeah,
kept
yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. I'm a gentleman. I love my fiance. He's saying all of the right things, but he still is going along with putting himself in a situation where he is ultimately, betraying trust that's been given to him, and um, yeah, and then does something truly horrific. And so I love that we see that descent into accepting doing something awful in real time with not just him, but kind of all of the guys that she uh, targets throughout the course of the movie.
And along that line too, Nathaniel, the guys kept saying too, I noticed multiple times, well, we were just kids. We were just kids, yada yada yada. And it's just so duplicitous and conniving. And I think this film is not very like horror centric if we kind of put it in the realm of The Exorcist or Hereditary or Alien, whatever. But there's this other level of horror that just eats at you on a different level. NJ, what did you think?
So I think that the fact that it is a real life horror is actually
More terrifying than, adding like a xenomorph for Gabriel, because like this is something that
Happens every day.
yeah, women, whoever has to contend with this. And I do think that this movie is very important in helping kind of shift the way that we think about it, and kind of seeing how people don't want to be the villain in their own story, so they justify what they do with these horrible actions, and you're getting to watch this like on screen, and this people do this every day, you know. I absolutely love the film, Ray. Like, my God.
Yeah, and I think we can kind of go into a few of the snippets of what we love specifically. For me, it really reminded me of the Barbie movie that came out, with Margot Robbie, that was such a hit for everybody, but it was darker. It kind of took the flair and the flash of Barbie and really brought it home to a much more horrific level. And something that was just such a gut punch was when Cassie does finally fall in love, and you're rooting for her, and Bo Burnham is kind of cute to look at,
Mhm.
and they're gonna make it, right? She's turning this corner, and then you realize that he was there at the rape of her friend and was, perhaps a silent participant, and it just guts you from the inside because even the best of men still can have this twisted dark side. And again, he threw out all of these platitudes of we were just children, that was a different time, she was drunk, like never taking responsibility. Oh, pissed me off.
Yeah. No, it's that moment is absolutely gut-wrenching, and I think that many women, many non-men can relate to a moment when they turn to a man who they thought was safe, who they thought was, not part of this, and were disappointed by them. And I think that's what deeply resonates with me, is that that feeling of we have this really prolific narrative in our world that men are gonna come and save you, right? Like that if a woman is wronged, there'll be some avenging man. Like, how many movies and books is that the plot where like a woman is wronged and some hero man rises to the occasion? And I think a lot of women have been wronged in real life, either in a major way or in a slight way, and had the experience of turning to a man they trust, who they think might be that role, even if it's in like a little way, and found that they did not rise to that occasion. And that's what that moment reminds me of, is that like realizing like, no, it's as bad as you thought. You are in this alone.
And how twisted is it to be trusting someone, especially from a place of vulnerability, um, and then have that returned with some sort of harassment, whether it's verbal or sexual or physical? That's gonna take your vulnerability and enhance the trauma tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we see a little bit of that with Cassie and Ryan, where Cassie is just so trusting. She's finally getting to a point where she can, let herself love in a sense. And then she loses that. And that's kind of when she snaps and decides murder is her only option out of this.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she's planning on murdering as much as planning on just carving Nina's name into um, Al's chest, I think is what she said.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That's,
I guess we don't get to see that play out. So
yeah, that's fair.
I wanted to also kind of mention that I think something that this movie does really well, kind of talking about that moment where going to a man that's trusted is a problem, is that it also shows us that sometimes, because of how society, and like the discourse around these kinds of things is set up, that uh, the same problem can happen also, going to like a woman in authority, or a friend that's a woman, that we see both, the dean of the school, who is a woman, also not do anything, in the past, which results in a very satisfying revenge scene against her. But then also, Alison Brie's character, that she was also part of the harassment around, the assault, and was laughing at the video of it and all of that. The fact that these two women are also kind of complicit in making this happen is, I think, really interesting, and a powerful choice, in the script. And I think that really kind of ties into the title itself, which, Promising Young Woman, is kind of a riff off of this line that was said when Brock Turner, who had sexually assaulted one of his classmates up at Stanford, was given only 6 months in prison, because the judge just said, "Oh, but because you're such a promising young man, basically we're just going to give you a little wrist slap."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I absolutely loved the revenge that Cassie sought on Dean Walker, because Dean Walker's dismissing this. Oh, that stuff happens. We get these reports, once or twice a week. We can't investigate them all. It's he said, she said, and then Cassie mentions that she brought Dean Walker's daughter and put her in the same room in which the assault took place, and it is a complete 180, panic. And it just goes to highlight that whenever it actually hits home, people know what is and what is not correct. But Dean Walker just dismissed it, and she got a little bit of a comeuppance, luckily. And her daughter was fine. Spoiler alert.
But the moment of panic, especially when she calls her and suddenly Cassie has the phone, is just such an amazing moment in the movie.
So good.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I do want to be careful, though. I understand where we're coming from here to talk about that sometimes women can be the kind of accomplice in situations like this. But at the end of the day, I think 9 out of 10 times it's the men taking advantage of the women.
Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
there's different levels of accountability here. And I just don't want to kind of push aside any sort of sexual harassment because women were also involved, right?
Oh yeah, no.
Absolutely.
And the point I was making there was more that it's become so systemically accepted that it is having ripple effects even by the people who might be otherwise being targeted, and that's just part of the horror of it, and part of the real horror of it.
Yeah, I think when we look at Alison Brie's character and the Dean, it was motivated in other things rather than sexual gratification, right?
Yes.
The Dean wanted some sort of monetary stability or accolade from it, and then Alison Brie's character, of course, is trying to maintain her stability. And we could go into kind of the sexism of that, and that's a whole other conversation, right? That they're participating in something so vile because they are so marginalized in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Two different crimes, I think, are happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to me, both those characters, the Dean and Allison, are showing us how ingrained rape culture is in systems and in societal norms. And I found the scene with Dean Walker particularly disturbing, to be honest with you, because it did feel very real and very grounded. And like NJ was saying earlier, to me, that's the scariest part of this movie. That's what makes it so harrowing, is that it does feel incredibly grounded in reality.
Yeah, I agree. Of everything that was happening, it was the moment that I think we've all been in. As queer people, how many times do we hear individuals say that they think one thing about the LGBTQ community, but then when they meet somebody, it all changes, right? Flip that on its head. Sure, someone was raped. I don't know them, yada, yada, yada. Maybe it was the victim. Maybe it was whoever. But if it's your daughter, it hits different. It's just moving and terrifying. And
yeah,
I don't know, I'll be thinking about that scene for a while.
Yeah, it also shows to me, like, people like the Dean and what the Dean is representing, which to me is institutions and systems. They know, right? Like, they kind of know that these women are telling the truth, right? Like, even if they say, well, it's a he said, she said, how could we possibly know? They do know. It's just so much more convenient to look the other way. And to me, that's really what that scene was about, was that panic on her face when it's her own daughter. She knows, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
there's no denying that she knows that this is a problem. It's just easier to look the other way and keep going on with the status quo.
And it's easier to look the other way when it's some cis hetero white boy whose family is probably paying the school a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gross.
Yeah.
Boys, stop being gross. Problem solved.
Good
So
job,
what-
Max.
So, what other scenes did you guys really identify with?
I don't think it was as much a scene in particular, but I thought the score to this film was incredible. They took a lot of songs from like Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, and Angel of the Morning, even these very kind of feminine songs and kind of powerhouse female anthems, and really twisted them on their head. Made me very unsettled, and it was perfect. It did such a good job. The beginning of Act 4, I guess we could call it, where they played this creepy piano version of Toxic. Ugh, gave me nightmares.
Did you also catch the "It's Raining Men"?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No. I've talked too much now. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, no scene in particular, but one of the things I really appreciate about this movie is that it doesn't fall into the trap that so many narratives do, where sexual assault against a woman is like this phoenix moment that like makes them strong and like now they have some sort of special power, whatever it is. Now they have the determination they needed all along. Like, I sort of hate that narrative.
Me too.
I think this was much more honest in its portrayal that these traumas, they destroyed these people, right? They destroyed Cassie. And it was not a Phoenix moment. She was devastated and she never recovered. And it ended in her death. And as you know, as much as that's not like an uplifting or like, you know, superhero Marvel movie fun time to watch, it is a lot more honest, I think, about the impacts of trauma, especially this particular sort of trauma.
I definitely agree. I feel like too often things like sexual assault is treated that way, and it's just so, you know, it's treated as a way to give character development to a female character. And if that's all you can think of to make your female characters grow, then get better at writing, please. Yeah, like my wife recently read a fantasy novel, and that was basically what there was a sexual assault scene that happens to a character, and then like a day later, that same character is happily sleeping with the main character, and you know, it's incredible how things like that are just treated so glibly. And so I'm really glad that this does show how profound of an impact something as traumatic as this can have on a person or the people around them too. Because, you know, this didn't happen to Cassie, the thing that happened to Nina, but it did because, you know, she shared the pain of her friend and spent time trying to take care of her and watch her lose all sense of self. And what, kind of shifting gears a little bit, a scene I wanted us to talk about a little bit was the scene with the lawyer, Alfred Molina's character. So you know, there's the scene where, you know, Cassie knocks on this door, and he opens the door, and she just says like, "Your day of judgment has come," and he just says like, "Good, come in." And he like admits to how it has destroyed his soul to have been complicit in helping men like Al get away with the bad things that they've done, and that there's this moment where, because he had such regret, like, she actually forgives him, and it's like this very beautiful kind of unexpected moment in the film. I really liked it because it does a great job of showing how, that this kind of systemic issue destroys way more than the people than are just being the victims of the assault.
Yeah, I think too, like, dedicating your life to revenge is not like the healthiest move, you know? Like,
Yes.
I think we have like bad examples of that in like Batman, and I mean, you know, I'm sure we could list off a million quote unquote heroes that are just dedicating their life to revenge. But realistically, if all you think about night and day is getting like comeuppance on other people, you're not gonna have like an incredible time doing that. Like, it's not fun.
It's definitely a full-time job.
And very dangerous, as we see.
Also that.
Just moving on. The lawyer, I think, was the only male character that I really had any compassion for. Perhaps Cassie's father a little bit. All of the other men were really just garbage people. We are in kind of a interesting dynamic here where we have three queer people who, of course, have been marginalized. But Nathaniel, you are cis hetero, white, male. What message, after watching this film, do you want to take and kind of share with other straight men, so to speak? I mean, not that we're going to solve any world problems here, but I'm just curious your point of view watching something this and having a closer tie to the problem than perhaps a few of us do.
I think it just is that much more important to make sure that this is the lesson that is being taught, that, you know, this kind of behavior is in fact vile, abhorrent behavior. It's not boys will be boys kind of, you know, thing. It needs to be, this is evil, this is bad, don't do this thing. Because you know, it's unconscionable, and you know that needs to be the entire conversation, you know, for anybody. It's just like, this kind of thing happening is unconscionable, and we need to do everything we can to not perpetuate it.
That was well said. I liked it.
Yeah, no room for pissing, realistically, right? This is what it is.
Yeah. This is such a powerful example of this, and I think it's a very accessible example, right? Like you mentioned before, Ray, like a lot of rape revenge films are kind of unpleasant to watch, right? Like they tend to be the kind of movies that way too many of them sort of get off on the violence against somebody, and then just are these very unpleasant, usually like hyper violent explorations of, you know, what's all the horrible ways that these bad people can have more bad things happen to them. And I think there is a place for those, but this, because it is so much more honest, I think this is the kind of film where people can watch this and actually have a real honest, genuine discourse about what this looks like in everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, I think movies like I Spit on Your Grave, and I mean, there's many, are very much male gaze horror action thrillers, where they have gratuitously long sexual assault scenes that seem to be meant to titillate more than horrify, and then the female main character evolves into like some sort of superhero Terminator type creature, right? So like, it's a choice that you can make, you know, but I think this is very unapologetically in the female gaze, this movie, and feels very different from those films.
One thing I really appreciated about this movie is it didn't actually like show us on screen the assault. You know, it did, there was the video that you only hear the audio to, but I appreciate that they did not subject us to that. And in a way, it almost works better because what you can imagine is probably worse than what they would show you potentially, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if they show us something, then there's going to be at least one person who watches it that goes, "Oh, well, that wasn't that bad," and that is exactly the wrong response. But I love that on the flip side, it did show us the murder as long as it took to actually smother someone. Like, that scene was harrowing. Just harrowing to watch, that it was like 2.5 minutes of her being smothered.
And what a defeat, too. Not only are we watching this happen, but this protagonist who really we're rooting for, even though she's doing some probably not great things, we don't care. We want her to survive. We want comeuppance for Al, because he's such a fucking weenie. When he started crying, I was just like, okay, Al, you're done.
Yeah, I mean, for me, her death was the only way this could end. And I was refreshing my memory on the movie, so I watched a brief interview with the director before this call. And she was saying that originally she had written a bit of a different ending or had one in mind. But once she got Cassie into this cabin full of men, there was no other way that this could end. And that feels very true to me. I struggled to believe that, realistically, she was going to go in there and take revenge on all of these men who are just physically so much stronger than her, even one of them. And she's extremely outnumbered. And the murder scene itself is harrowing, and you hear every sound, and it just removes any ambiguity. I mean, there's no argument that this was like a mistake. Like, he has so much time to change his mind, realize what he's doing, decide not to kill her, and he just doesn't. So then when the friend, I forget the actor's name, but he's from Schitt's Creek, who's like such a he's Schmidt. He's Schmidt in New Girl. That's who he is. Comes in and is like, oh, it's not your fault, tries to really downplay it. It just really highlights what I think is the point of this whole movie, which is like, we've got to stop downplaying this culture in all its forms, because it's just not true,
So one thing I wanted to definitely touch on was how they used humor to balance out just the pain and the occasional, the bleakness of it all. So, the whole time you're not just down in your feelings, at least you get to laugh a little bit whenever Ryan's talking about a woman pulling a skeleton hand out of her vagina and waving. I very much appreciated that. And I also enjoyed just kind of the banter. Although, one thing I did catch, when Ryan is bantering with Cassie and he's like, "You stupid bitch," but he's joking, but it's like, are you,
Well, he's not. I think we learned that he's not when
Exactly.
when she finally confronts him and he loses the upper hand and he calls her a bitch in earnest.
It's like a little, it's like a breadcrumb of like, Ryan's actually going to be a shitbag. Here it is.
It's kind of that subversion we talked about a little bit earlier, where just because there's humor behind it doesn't make it any less disgusting, right?
Exactly.
I also liked that there was a lot of instances where they framed Cassie like an angel or a saint. Like there are multiple scenes that will like start with her, with some sort of like painted thing behind her or whatever. That it seems like almost like a halo around her head. Mm-hmm. And that she's kind of this avenging angel, which is part of why they have the song "Angel of the Morning" after. Just before the kind of the credits roll, that was something that they did very deliberately, is just kind of framing her as this sort of angelic figure that is meant to bring some sort of vengeance down on these awful men.
She's my patron saint, so.
Should we kind of shift gears and talk about things maybe that we didn't fully love about the film before I have to bounce?
Yes. What did you hate?
I didn't hate a lot of it. It was not Jack Frost, so that was good. No, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's hard pressed to criticize anything from it. I have a note where the kind of 4 sections of the film are divided with what appear to be Roman numerals, but now that I take a step back and think about it, they're not Roman numerals at all. They're like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as she has in her notebook.
Yeah, there's little tally marks.
So,
and there is a 5 for the scene going into the cabin.
So there goes that critique. Bo Burnham is kind of cute, but by the end of this film, I wanted to punch him in the face and the nards. So that's not a criticism, rather than just you suck.
Yeah, it was kind of delightful to get a tweet or a text earlier going like, "Oh, hey, has he always been this attractive?" And then, like, an hour later went, going, "Actually, I want to punch him in the face."
NJ, I know you had something you wanted to talk about, in particular, women in medicine.
I did, yeah. So the part where Cassie, she dresses up in the sexy nurse outfit to go to the bachelor party cabin in the woods, and she knocks on the door, and one of the guys opens the door, and he's like, "The doctor's in." I literally out loud, I was like, "Please, like, no man's gonna assume that a woman is a doctor when they answer the door like that." And it's probably just it's a massive pet peeve of mine, because, historically, women were nurses, men were doctors. Now it's more so a 50-50 split, thankfully. But even now, like, I will go into a room, introduce myself as doctor. I have a badge that says doctor. I talk to somebody for 5 minutes, go back in an hour, and they'll be like, "Oh, the nurse is here." And it's just drives me insane. Not that, like, it's inferior or anything to be a nurse by any means, but it's like you completely ignore what you're told and make an assumption. And it's kind of belittling to, training and all the amount of time and effort that you've spent. But then, of course, after the men are like, "Oh, sexy nurse. Oh, I need a temperature in my butthole." I don't think they said that, but that's what I would say if I was there.
They should have. "Hey, sexy boy, want your thermometer up your butt?"
That's what nurses say.
Reading.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that with Mark tonight and see how it goes.
Wear a little sexy nurse outfit and just get your mercury thermometer.
That's right. Just be like, "Hey, sexy boy." No.
But yeah, it was just a little rant that I had. Apparently it brought up feelings.
Love it. Rae, did you have anything you disliked about the film?
Oh, I think the film is incredibly well done. And I know we're going to get to ratings in a minute. I'll just say the only reason I don't rate it higher is because it's just so painful to watch, which means it's doing its job really well, because I think that's the point. But it hurts. It hurts.
Yep. The only things that I had really were that I wanted just... I really, really wanted Cassie to at least start carving Nina's name into Al, just for him to have some sort of physical scar, even if it's just, a line in his leg before he managed to break free from his shackles. That just would have been very cathartic as an audience member to see, because he freaking deserves what's coming to him and worse. At the end of the movie. And also, I really wanted Ryan to get a clear comeuppance at the end, because he is party to something awful that happened, and I think that he should be held responsible, and it's kind of unclear whether or not anything bad happens to him, other than, "Oh, I'm at a wedding that got real awkward when the cop showed up." So basically, I just wanted the bad people to have worse things happen to them.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of ratings, should we go into what we think about this film?
Yeah, so let's talk screams. How scary did you find this movie, Max?
So I originally put it at a 6, but after we've kind of discussed things, I really enjoy our Scream discussions just because they do kind of enhance the horror a little bit. I bumped it up to a 7. This movie will kind of challenge your experience in life and really make you question some things. It's remarkable. What a great find, Ray.
Also a 7. Just, yeah, the real life horror of just how awful people can be got to me, and the more we talked about it, the more that kind of sat with me. So
I'm going to go with a ditto 7, what Nathaniel said.
And I don't want to be a copycat, but I also put 7. But I'll say it's because it's phrased how scary. I think if the question was how unsettling or how upsetting is this movie, I would say 10 out of 10.
Which, for sure.
And I think that's
sure.
the goal of the movie more than scary per se. So I'm saying 7, but that's not at all a poor mark on the movie by any means. I think it's just not quite what it sets out to do.
So as far as crowns go, how stellar of a movie it is from 1 to 10, I gave it a 9. Probably one of the best films I've watched all year, if I'm honest. This will come up in parties. I want to show Mark this movie. Like, it really changed me. Thank you for sharing it with us, Ray.
wait, you're gonna watch this at a party?
I mean, at like a horror movie night, not like at a Christmas party where, we're all in PJs and having cookies. Hey guys, let's watch Rape Culture. Merry Christmas, and don't do this.
I mean, I guess that would be effective. It would really
Yeah.
have everyone quietly sitting around afterwards going, who is this in my life?
Goodness.
I also gave it a 9. It's pretty dang near perfect.
I too gave it a 9. I immediately started talking about this movie to like everybody I've spoken to and told them to watch it, and it will live on in my memory because it was so freaking unsettling.
I'm so thrilled you all liked it so much. I gave it an 8.5. I think the movie is brilliant. It's so well written, well acted. We talked about the score. It's amazing. I docked a 1.5 just because I don't think I can watch it again because it's just so uncomfortable. And so, I don't know, that maybe I shouldn't dock it for that reason, but that's my rationale.
To be fair, we went from a 0 for me to a 9. So, really, home run for Max.
And so I did have just one parting thought before Max goes and leaves us. Do you feel like female vengeance is more calculated than male vengeance? And if so, why? Whoever would like to answer the question.
Oh, I have thoughts. I think it has to be, like, in the real world.
I was just going to say the same thing, Ray. I think women have to be calculated. They don't have the luxury of not being.
Mm-hmm. Because, if I just haul off on some man, I can't physically back that up. So I think, the threat of male physicality, and I'm speaking broadly, of course, and in lots of generalizations, but, you'll be gracious with me. It is such that the only way a woman is successfully executing any kind of revenge plan is basically by using wit in some way or another. With the exception of like a very rare instance where a woman can physically overpower a man, which I think does not happen often.
Yeah, and I think society also kind of accepts male aggression and male revenge more so than women aggression. And so you have to be conniving, you have to think outside the box because it is looked upon differently. and you can't get away with what you want to get away with if you're a woman.
Very well said. You guys exceeded my expectations with the question, so thank you.
That's what I'm here for, NJ. As a man, it's what I'm here. Oh, I can't. I can't even go there. It made my stomach churn.
Did you throw up in your mouth a little bit?
I did. Yuck. I don't know how people do that for real. Barf-o-rama.
All right. Should we move on and talk about Rae's amazing writing?
Before we do, I just want to say, Rae, thank you so much. This film was very life-changing. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You guys have a hoot and a holler talking about Rae's awesome book.
Thank you, Max. You'll be missed.
And to stay spooky, I rewatched Better Watch Out. And Nathaniel, you're dumb. That movie is great. Everyone should watch it this Christmas season. It's ridiculous, but a great time.
All right, bye, Max.
Bye. Was it just because he called you dumb and you're like, whatever, Max, bye?
I mean, he's just wrong. I mean, that movie sucks. I know.
All right, you guys want to nerd out on some books?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, now it's horror writer talk.
So I was introduced to your work by the Stradivarius. I got my copy autographed. I just want to throw that out there at StokerCon, and absolutely loved it. Your retelling of Gaslight was just beautiful, and you were just very good at characters, making me care about people, hate people, that kind of thing. So I want to commend you on that.
Thank you. It's very kind of you to say.
Anytime.
Yeah, I also very much enjoyed the Stradivarius. Very good creepiness. I like kind of some of the supernaturally elements weaving in with the real life horrors of the gaslighting and the horrible manipulation that is done on the main character, whose name is escaping me right now because it's the middle of the day and my brain doesn't work all the day. But regardless, really thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah, like your prose is also just so excellent. It's great treat both as a writer and an English teacher to read prose that just sparkles like yours does.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No, thank you. But we're mostly going to talk about Merciless Waters. But everyone should read the Stradivarius too, but should also first pick up Merciless Waters because it's your new book. What do you want to say about it without getting into too deep of spoiler territory before we gush about how much we loved it?
Yeah. So Merciless Waters is about a group of women who are living on a pirate ship with no memory of their past, and they describe this as an eternal present. And one day they rescue a man who is adrift at sea, and that sets off a chain reaction of problems for these women. I don't know if we want to get into spoiler territory here or not, so that's my very vague book blurb with no spoilers.
Yeah, I think we should probably leave it roughly there. We might lightly dip into some vague spoilers as much as we can avoid them, though. We want people to have a fresh experience with the book.
So I don't want to be like, where did you get your ideas? But how did this story come about?
Oh, so you just rephrase it and
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it sounded more intellectual that way.
So I've written a lot about this couple in short stories under different names, but the same characters in my head canon. And I wanted to give them a longer work. So around the time I was thinking about that, I was looking into lore and I found a particular piece of lore, which to describe in detail would be a bit of a spoiler, but I thought it was just perfect for the story that I wanted to tell about these two characters, Jack and Lily, who are in a relationship that's less than ideal. And yeah, it kind of went from there. And the other thing I did was I tweeted that I wanted to write Sapphic folk horror on a pirate ship. And it got like a really big response. People like really liked that mashup of things. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I have to figure out how to do folk horror on a pirate ship, and we'll see how this goes.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, the relationship between Jack and Lily, like, it was very poignant. It, not to belabor my life by any means, but it reminded me of a connection I've had previously where you feel somebody slipping away, and the way that you wrote that with the emotion, just knife to the heart. Like, you portrayed it so well.
Thank you. I mean, I certainly know that feeling too, where, and for me, it's like even more heartbreaking when a person is not gone, but they are not as present as they were before. And like that feeling of knowing that they are getting further away from you is so devastating in like a slow death sort of way that, that's kind of what I wanted to capture in their dynamic.
It's like 1,000 paper cuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oof. Rough.
The another part that I just adored was your chapter 11. Again, not to get into spoilers. So an event occurs in which Lily and Jack are reunited. And the way that you wrote their... I guess it is a sex scene, but I mean, it doesn't really focus particularly on that. It's the emotion that Jack feels finally getting her love back. Like, I read that over and over just because it was so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Do you mean, sorry, I don't remember the chapters per se. Are we talking about the underwater sex scene, or are we talking about the sex scene that flashes back to another sex scene? Which, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty impressed with myself.
You're like, whoo, spraying yourself with some water there.
Yeah.
Whenever they return to their cabin after, that one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I might make my wife read that one later just to be like, all right, read this. I'm going to go and freshen up.
If it inspires anything, I don't know. I don't know what could happen.
Either way, thank you. So what did you think, Nathaniel?
I really enjoyed seeing how you brought in, like a folk story that I was largely unfamiliar with, and did such interesting things with it. I felt like the characters were very well fleshed out. The prose is stunning again. It was just a banger all the way across. So I loved it. So yeah, just you're really good at writing is what I'm getting at. And
I'm gonna just cut that out of this podcast and like make it my ringtone or something for when I have difficult days. It can just be you telling me I'm actually really good at writing.
Feel free to use that as a blurb on anything that you want.
No, thanks for saying that. You know, it's funny, and Jan, I don't know, or you know, either one of you can relate to this, but I definitely go through a bit of a thing because it takes so long from when I write the book to when it comes out that I feel like I've grown as a writer by the time anything comes out. So I always get a little like nervous when it's released, just because I feel like, oh man, if I wrote that book today, I could probably do a better job. But if I rewrote every book right before publication, that seems unsustainable and also unproductive. So we obviously can't be doing that. But it's really like affirming and wonderful to hear that you both enjoyed it.
I would like to ask you, did you have any Sapphic horror influences that informed this book a little?
So I definitely read House of Hunger. I do try to read things that would be in the realm of comps when I'm writing something, for mostly for like pitching purposes, because I know I'm eventually gonna have to try to sell this book. So that's what comes to mind right now. Um, I also read a number of like the Moonflowers and Nightshade short stories, but that's an anthology edited by Samantha Kolesnick. That was all Sapphic horror, and wonderful. Truly, I think I just love to write Sapphic horror more than I am really being inspired by specific influence. Oh, but if I have to shout someone out, I'm definitely never going to turn down an opportunity to shout out Paula D. Ashe, who is incredible and writes Sapphic horror, extreme horror, so mind the trigger warnings. But just a tremendous talent writing Sapphic horror right now.
Yeah, I love her stuff.
She's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. Very cool too. I didn't get to actually speak to her, but I got to go to see a few of her panels, and she's just very eloquent and very
admired
big
her from
chin.
afar.
Yeah, nothing creepy. I mean, I just wrote her name down on a notebook paper a few times and was like, cool as book.
Totally normal. You just made a small shrine in the hotel room. It wasn't big. It was like very easy to travel with. It was fine.
It packs up nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As long as you blow out all the candles first.
Yeah, absolutely. Safety first.
No, truly, she's a tremendously talented author and totally brilliant. At one point she posted a lecture that she did. She's in academia, and I listened to it, and just like all around brilliant, wonderful human. Cannot sing her praises high enough. So anyone listening, if you have not read her collection, We Are Here to Hurt Each Other, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but like, get it together is what I'm trying to say to you, you know?
Yeah, fix yourself. Also, Paula D. Ashe, don't get a restraining order on me. I'm like joking, like mostly.
She only took one tissue out of the trash that you blew your nose into. Only one.
I guess I should also like use this as an opportunity to say Paula was kind enough to write the foreword for Scissor Sisters, which is an anthology of Sapphic villains edited by myself and April Yates that is coming out in January. So it should be available soon. So shameless plug there.
Just picture the like Fry meme and shut up and take my money.
Yeah. The stories are fantastic. So I do think it would be money well spent.
Perfect. I know what I'm asking for January. Let me see.
Pre-orders now. That to my Goodreads, and okay. Well, yeah, see, this is the problem. Whenever we have cool people on the podcast, then just my to read list just gets longer, which is an active problem at all times.
Hey, I get it. I've been drowning for a really long time in books, and it's a great problem to have. I mean, I wouldn't trade it.
That's why I wish I was a vampire, because then I could just have all the time in the world to read.
I have so many reasons I wish I was a vampire.
Is it mostly the fashion?
It's like we'd need a whole other episode, NJ. I don't want to derail us. There's a lot to unpack.
All right, that'll be an upcoming episode. Why Rae wants to be a vampire. It is 17 hours long.
Yes, it's a 24-part series.
Okay, well, where can people buy your book?
Oh, wherever you want, bro. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org if you want to shop indie, which is great. If you want to get it directly from me, I will mail you a signed copy with my grubby little hands, and I will sign it for you. And I send them in sparkly pink envelopes, which is really fun. And you can do that. There's info in my link tree on my website. You can hit me up. But yeah, they should be pretty much available wherever there are books.
I think I also saw you had an Ambrose sticker at one point.
Yeah, very exclusive to ordering from me personally. So, I will throw an Ambrose sticker in there. And Ambrose, if you haven't read the book, kind of steals the show. He's a talking sea snake and he's pretty great. He's a wonderful little gentleman. So once you read it, you're going to want his sticker. I feel pretty confident when I say that.
Wonderful little gentleman.
He is.
So he's perfect.
He's lovely.
He really is.
He's the one that really stole my heart, to be honest with you.
I get it. Same here.
That chapter 11 scene was just like second place.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. Sea snake.
And then Rae, where can we find you on Twitter? What's your handle?
So I'm at _Rae_Knowles, and that's on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. My website's just raeknowles.com. That's easier to remember. I'm around. I'm lingering. I'm hanging out outside Paula D. Ash's house. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, Paula. I hope Paula will know that I'm joking.
Now it's a double restraining order.
Right? We're both done.
Yeah. And then I'm assuming you're going to StokerCon this year, yes?
I am. I'm so excited. And I even got a table there. So I'll, be at my table.
So it'll be easy to stalk you is what we're hearing.
I like to really make it easy for people. So yeah, I'll be at the table. You can put GPS devices on my bag or whatever. I should just stop while I'm not too far behind.
Well, I'm planning to just like recreate our meeting with the vape smoke. So just be aware that is something that will be happening.
I look forward to it, and I really appreciate that you made it sound like magical and cool instead of just like really lame, which is how I feel like it actually is in real life. But you added some like fantasy flavor there, and I really appreciate that.
Anytime, I got you.
All right,
well,
and one last thing. How are we all staying spooky?
Rae, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm buddy reading The Exorcist right now with C.S. Umble, and I have never read it before. We're having an amazing time. The writing is incredible. Also, Blatty is not good at writing women, but that's a separate conversation. But I'm here for a good time. I'm ready for that iconic line that is very coarse that maybe I shouldn't say here. But super spooky.
Definitely. How about you, Nathaniel?
I just watched the BBC Dracula, which was on Netflix, at least in the US. 3 episodes. It was a journey. There were things I loved about it, and there were things that I didn't love about it. So, I think it's worth checking out for people who love Dracula and are willing to accept a very big departure from what you usually get with a Dracula story. But it's a journey. I'll say that. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been mostly doing besides reading so many books and all of the usual nonsense.
Bragging about your reading speed, whatever. Anyway, I am reading an arc of Flesh, Communion, and Other Stories by Holly Rae Garcia. Rae, if you are a Sapphic horror gal, you need to go get this because she features a lot of Saphics in her short stories. The title short story, Flesh Communion, actually it's a little ditty about Waco and the Branch Davidians, and there might be a little Donner Party-esque elements, and I am here for it.
Oh, that's really fun. And I was recently on a panel with Holly Rae Garcia at Spooky Empire. So shout out, Holly. It was nice to meet you in person, and I'll have to pick up Flesh Communion and Other Stories.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Rae, for coming on and blessing us with your ethereal presence.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Well, thanks for listening to the Scream Kings podcast. Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.